My name is Lisa Shu. I'm an investor at FirstMark, and I'm very excited to welcome our guest today, Mike Wen, co-founder and CEO of Gallery. Welcome, Mike. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. This is super exciting. Really pumped to talk to you. I know we met over Discord, so it's exciting to have a real URL face-to-face conversation.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, as you know, I'm a proud member of the Gallery community. I think we met through your Discord, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm into the silver membership card back in November. So didn't hit the gold, but still, in that premium bucket, which is great. Have had a lot of fun building out my gallery, and every time I buy a new NFT, I'm like the first thing I do. If I'm not changing my profile pic, I'm adding it to my gallery. So you're right up there on my daily use case. So clearly a huge
Love
fan of
it.
the product and really excited to have you kind of share your story with our audience. So just to start, for those who aren't as familiar as I am with Gallery, what is Gallery?
So it's a social platform for people to, one, express themselves, and two, find belonging online. So what does that mean in the context of NFTs? Well, we believe NFTs are an insanely powerful technology that you can now own things on the internet, and that represents these building blocks for identity, building blocks for what you're interested, your communities you're part of, as well as the things you do. So we're just creating a space for people to share that with the world, and as well as connect with others who might resonate with you based off, um, shared interests, shared passions, shared values.
Wonderful. And take me back to like the origin story. Like, what inspired you to start Gallery originally?
It started as a side project. That's really how it started. So a little background on me. Um, I wouldn't call myself a crypto veteran in that, Bitcoin went up in 2017. I bought some, but didn't really spend too much time thinking about it. What really changed was in 2020 when I bought my first NFT. So what I learned was that, wow, you can now own things on the internet. They can have value. What else can you do with this? And the way I saw it was that this was a foundational technology that in 10 years everyone is going to be using. It's going to be a part of everyone's daily lives. Creators doing this with merch, artists selling their works as NFTs, musicians, earning a living via selling NFTs, and even beyond that, just like all the use cases that we couldn't even imagine beyond kind of the analogous like current world we live in. What was really top of mind for me was a personal pain point. I had a bunch of NFTs. They're worth thousands of dollars, and I wanted to share them in a way that looked good. The current way you did that was you go to OpenSea, you look at your profile, and there are all these buttons, prices, price charts and graphs. So I kind of looked around, didn't see anything that really met my needs, and I just started building.
One of the things that always struck me is, even as you've built out more features, you've kept Gallery really minimalistic in look. Can you just talk a little bit about your philosophy there? I know, so the art itself is so much more meaningful with ownership. So were you trying to highlight that, or, where did you draw your inspiration?
So our goal was truly to create a space that you could call your own and share the things that you own. And with that in mind, our product design and functionality and UX is really meant to sort of encapsulate that as much as possible, which means, um, you know, we want to sort of fall into the background as at gallery itself, right? And then you as a collector, as well as your works, should be brought to the forefront. I think our guiding philosophy is really we want to give users the tool and the power and control over exactly how their page should look, given that this is such a core part of who they are, how they want to portray themselves online.
Do you think you're building a kind of new type of social network that's on chain? And if so, what does that look like? How are you thinking through that dynamic?
Short answer is yes. We do believe we're building a new social network that is layered on, on-chain behavior and on-chain ownership. What is interesting to us is that there's so many connections being formed implicitly based off the things you own. So the way we look at it is that in the past, you can bring yourself, you have this identity that you can curate via your Instagram photos or the tweets that you share. But in this new world where now you can own things on the internet, it just adds so much richness and texture to who you are online because now you can put at stake, capital by owning something and really saying, I really care about this because I spent, so and so amount of money or ETH. Effectively, there's just additional resolution on who you are online.
Hmm.
And there needs to be a place to capture that. And I think what we see is everyone, if you own something, you want to share it with the world in a way that you can say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I own. We see Gallery playing a really big role in making this future happen. We see that as a foundation upon which, you know, people can then meet others and build community and actually have a native experience with this world where you can now own things outside of what exists today via Twitter and Discord.
And how do you, in that paradigm, how do you strike the right balance from a product perspective of, social features that people are familiar with from the Web 2 world, like followers and feeds and
Yeah.
likes and that kind of thing, versus, pushing a new paradigm that's possible because you're taking on chain data versus, other types of signal?
So we don't have the perfect answer, but I think that what guides us is we just need to build a product that users want.
Hmm.
And so starting just from first principles, I think we essentially looked at the world and said, hey, wow, people need a place to share the things they love in a way that looks good, right? So that's really where the MVP started. Well, now we're with the social perspective, we're seeing things like, hey, I want to find other people and look at other people's galleries and discover what else people like. So there's already discovery element that's being highly requested. We also hear from people, it's like, hey, once I see someone's gallery that really resonates with me, I want to be able to interact with them in some way. We find people going actually off platform to Twitter to DM them immediately after and say some sort of compliment or make some sort of connection. And we're like, wow, that's really fascinating. That actually should be something that should be layered in and a lot more frictionless and actually intuitive on the gallery platform. We do not ever want to be an attention-based product. And what that means is that we'll never be monetizing the time spent based off, selling ad space. Instead, what we see the power of NFTs is that, hey, if this is such if you really associate your gallery with your identity, then there's a ton of value in making that as high resolution as you as possible. So we're already seeing people are willing to spend on cosmetic upgrades, and we're hearing people are willing to spend on ways to make this as as customizable as possible. So we want to lean more in that direction than we would ever in sort of like a traditional Facebook or Instagram model.
And one more question I wanted to ask you while we're on the topic of kind of on-chain social network,
Yeah.
particularly in the NFT space, across different chains. So, the ETH ecosystem or the Solana ecosystem or some of these, emerging chains where there are artists and fan communities, they feel very siloed, right? People are, I only really collect Ethereum based NFTs. Some people will experiment, but it feels very disconnected. So is that something you need to address at Gallery? And if so, how are you thinking about kind of bringing that all together?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I totally agree with you. It feels like there's so many different pockets of NFTs emerging and communities rallying around it, um, but no sort of one place that connects it all. And we believe galleries should be the single place where someone can go for all their NFTs, which means we will be cross-chain. If you own an NFT on Solana, own an NFT on Tezos, own an NFT on Ethereum, they should all be represented in one single space for you on Gallery.
Great. And just shifting gears a bit, you've done some really cool things to grow the community at Gallery. So you've partnered with some of the top creators and communities in the ecosystem, like FWB, Pool Suite, Crypto Coven, recently CPG Club, just to name a few. So can you share just how did you get that quality of communities on board, and have you learned anything interesting or surprising kind of through working with them and rolling out the product to their communities?
Something we're really proud of is truly sort of how community driven we are. It's been a core principle in how we build. some of the biggest protocols like Uniswap and Aave have all pioneered this concept of being user governed in a number of ways, and that really inspires us, and hopefully is a separate path to becoming a platform that's value extractive at its
Right.
end state. So while it's unclear sort of like how we get to a point where we can truly pass off ownership to our users, whether it's through a token, whether it's through NFTs, we want to bake that ideology in and into our DNA from the very start. If we want to be really community focused, then the people we want on board, we should be thoughtful about that.
Hmm.
And what that means is when we started, we kept the gallery community really gated for a number of reasons. One, it's just the product simply was not ready for a lot of people. So that was a really simple excuse. But second, it was that, we felt that, the community is truly the engine for growth in the long term. And in order to have a really strong community in the future, the core needed to be really, really, really intentional. So after running a couple of those with like FWB, with Crypto Coven, it clearly was this like beautiful relationship where it's like, okay, the users love it because they get to onboard, get early access to something that is really cool. The community loves it because they get to share something with their members and sort of provide value in a way. And then for us, we get to bring on people who are really engaged and passionate.
Yeah.
And once this clicked, it's like, okay, this is a really powerful sort of onboarding mechanism that one brings on really passionate users while we're still shaping the foundation of the product, and two, also keeps the community really tight and integrated and intentional. So we were just experimenting. Like we see NFTs as a really, really powerful tool for community building. We see that we're building gallery to support that, but at the same time, hey, like why don't we also leverage this as a tool for ourselves too?
Awesome. Well, I have a couple random kind of questions to ask on to end on. One is, do you have a favorite gallery, and why is it your favorite, if you have one?
I
It's
have.
probably very hard for you.
It's very hard. There's a ton of really good ones. I think the obvious one that comes to mind for me is DC Investors Gallery. And it's
Mhm.
almost sentimental because he was one of the first sort of big users that got on. And he also, just given his influence, has shared it a number of times and also brought on a bunch of people because of it, and has been a big talking point for me across like when I'm describing gallery. So shout out to DC Investor. His gallery is pretty remarkable. I can share like a link afterwards because it truly feels like a Web3 museum, and he's like added amazing descriptions and commentary. It's insane.
Awesome. And then my last question is, with everything going on in the crypto markets, and you're obviously close to creators and
Mhm.
community members. Any predictions for what happens to NFTs over the next few months, maybe next year?
In order for NFTs to breach sort of the mainstream world outside of sort of a crypto bubble that we're in, which I think it has made a lot of progress, is I do think there is a PR problem that NFTs will have to overcome. I think for certain people, like NFTs is a very triggering word. I think NFTs that you just get for doing a certain thing rather than have to buy it, I think will be play a big part in that. Yeah, we'll see how this shapes up. Hopefully in the next year and 2 years or so, public sentiment may shift as more credible sort of creators and brands and projects come about that are actually leveraging NFTs for its true utility rather than just cash grab speculation. While like Bored Ape has I think there's a lot of pros and cons to it. I think it's proven that it is interesting to see that brand sort of emerge from this crypto sphere. But also like Nouns DAO has been really interesting to watch in that like they have created a mechanism in order to align incentives with these core contributors while also bringing in consistent stream of revenue and essentially create and then creating incentives such that contributors are aligned to create value for the group and actually spread sort of this the Nouns brand
Mhm.
via proposals and via contributions. But yeah, I think long story short, there's just a lot of really cool things happening. That's what's really exciting to us, and just getting to play a small part in it, and hopefully, lift the ecosystem as a whole. And what we do at Gallery is what keeps us going.
Awesome. Well, we'll see if your predictions are right. Anyway, thank you so much for all the insights and stories, and for joining us today. And it was a really fun conversation. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.